some of the most precarious situations I found myself involved in when it came to poetry. One was when social networking first began and we didn't really know what we was doing. And someone sent me a direct message. A sister was saying that she enjoyed my poetry. And I said something like, well, I look forward to the next time we're in the same venue. And I got a response from her man. And dude was like, yo, I don't know what's up with you poet dudes. Don't be trying to push up on my girl. I know what y'all be doing with all those metaphors. I know what you mean by venue. And I meant venue. I just meant poetry venue. Another crazy situation when somebody was on the fringes, it was a terrible situation. He would just come every once in a while and do like, I love my Black Queen poems, love poems and whatever. And he ended up arrested for statutory. It was in the paper. I know a lot of the sisters on the poetry scene, brothers too, but especially sisters, was pissed. Another case, something precarious, was being in Phoenix with some promoters, and I guess it was a mix-up with the money at the end of the night, and they were fighting with the person that owned the venue, so it was like two different crews, and the guys that owned the venue pulled out a gun. The promoter's girl hit one of the guys with like a bottle, like a little water bottle or something, or a bag, a potato chip bag, I don't know what it was, but one of the promoters, the guy whose girl it was, he just ran. And me, the poet that they brought in, and his girl are just standing there, and this dude with the gun, and it's like time stopped. In another instance, I was sitting with a bunch of poets, like the in crowd, the real cool poets in a city, and they were talking about a poet who was really popular, and they were saying he didn't write his own stuff. And I'm sure it was a better way I could have dealt with it, but at the time that it rubbed me the wrong way, because I felt like, what happens when I leave? They'll be talking about me. They'll say I don't write my own stuff. That's the worst thing you could say about a poet. So I confronted the poet. I asked him, point blank, do you write your own stuff? Because I admire him. A lot of the people who were in my crew admire him. So I really wanted to know. But that whole group of poets that I was chilling with that had kind of let me in their circle was mad that I asked them, because they felt like that was a bad reflection on them and that was supposed to be kept secret. I didn't know how to keep something like that secret. Maybe that was on me. To the extent that you talk about me and it's true, I dig it, it's cool. But to say things that I didn't do, that would be an issue. Another thing that's kind of awkward was promoters like giving you some weed with your pay. In addition to your envelope, or maybe they give you the envelope and be a little weed in there, because I wasn't a smoker, so I would try to give it away. I remember once I performed in Cancun. I remember I just had to leave it in the hotel. People who clean the room or something could use it. And because I would find myself thrown into the way at airports. I ain't want no dogs sniffing me out and things like that. Once on the road, one promoter told me he had an escort service on the side. He thought it was some kind of like community service or something, talking about helping people who ain't had no other way of getting out of the hood and pairing them with the right people, something. But then he said, now at the end of the night, after I hit you with your envelope, if you want some company, I'm like, yo, I'm good, man. Another case is people who have the same name. I know, like in Chicago, there was a spot called Touch of the Past. Dope. One of the freshest spots that I ever recall being in my spoken word career. And then the host was a cat named Reality. Well, eventually a sister, another poet in Chicago, started calling herself Reality too. So that was strange. It was real awkward. But Reality, who hosted Touch of the Past, eventually just changed his name and started spelling it backwards, started calling himself Watelier, just to make sure there wasn't no confusion. And speaking of name confusion and Chicago, I have an acquaintance who calls himself Black Ice in Chicago, and that makes for a really awkward situation for me, because I came up with a poet named Black Ice who came out of Philadelphia, Lamar Manson. When I started hanging around Chicago and, in 99, going into 2000, 2001, I meet this other cat and we're still cool. So he still contacts me maybe once or twice a year, says something positive, encouraging. It's weird to be stuck in the middle of that, because he'll tell me that, he always had that name, but then I know, in Philly and in other places, people felt like he took my boy's name. And it's real weird, because again, the cat never show me love. There's a footage of me doing his show, my boy in Chicago, and he's talking to me afterwards, and you just see me making sure that no matter what I say, I don't call him Black Ice.
I'm impressed with your organization. I'm impressed with the quality of what you put together. I'm impressed with your brotherhood and your fellowship. So, I'm a fan. I really appreciate what you're bringing, and I love more than anything to hear those stories of the community interaction that you're involved in. So I'm happy I came. I can't think of any place else I would have rather have been tonight to listen to and be involved in poetry. I just want to say, for those of you who do not know my boy right here, I have so much love for him, and what I love the most about him is his sincerity.
Yes, sir.
And if you saw him last year, and you saw him this year, and you saw him 10 years ago, and you see him 5 years from now, same brother, same realness, and I appreciate that because that's rare.
I have confronted my man in Chicago about that because, like, the idea of being disloyal to people doesn't sit well with me and Philly Black Ice. Like I said, we go back to the 90s with him coming up to the New York weekend with the Twin Poets and this cool white cat named Kevin and Rich Medina, DJ. And so we go back. So it's a hell of an awkward conflict. I don't want to be in the middle of that. I don't know what's going on with that name situation. Speaking of name situations, another precarious situation I kind of got caught up in, somewhat of a friend, acquaintance in Houston called Seven. Cool cat, dapper, well-spoken, slick, real cool cat. Now, one of my closest friends, of course, is Shihan here in Los Angeles. And Shihan has had the Poetry Lounge since the 90s. And yet my boy in Houston started a spot referring to it as the Poetry Lounge instead of like how in Los Angeles there's the Poetry Lounge, DA. With the Poetry Lounge in Houston, I was extended family, but in the Poetry Lounge, which is in Los Angeles, which is, considered the largest weekly open mic in the world, I'm actual family, like I actually belong to, was on the team. I don't know, somehow I got caught up in these conversations going back and forth between them about those names. Another awkward situation in Baltimore, we had a popular poet who was really cool with me. He ended up getting with the most popular singer in town, somebody else I was cool with, and these cats robbed a bank together. Apparently, they may still be awake for that, but that was real crazy when you had like two of the top artists in the city just become a news story.